Welcome to another episode on my code experiments with AI, and today we are going to talk about how we can write a backtest with the help of GitHub Copilot. So we will be looking at reading the data files, writing a backtest and analyzing the backtest results, and looking at how to generate the quantitative reports from those results. I will be intervening as little as possible and trying to get much done through the speech to text and GitHub Copilot. Before we start, a standard disclaimer: this is purely educational content and no part of this video should be considered as financial or investment advice. There may be errors and bugs in the code, and hence it is your responsibility to review each part of the code before use. So first of all, we will start with asking Copilot to create a file for us, and I'm going to call this file bt.py. Bt is for backtest. So now it is going to create a file for me, and I also asked it to print hello world in that file. So I like to begin a project by starting with a very simple function like main function and printing hello world. And from there, I can add more modules and gradually build out the functionality, keeping everything modular to avoid confusion for the AI. So now I have asked it to create a function main and move the hello world into that main function. Now I'm going to create a main Python notebook and use it to call the main function instead of using the terminal. This setup will help me visualize the output directly in the notebook. As we move forward, we will be adding data frames and plots, which are easier to view in a Python notebook rather than the terminal. And I'm also going to create that manually because GitHub Copilot sometimes takes too long to create these notebooks. And we can generate code within the notebook using Copilot. In this case, I'm just going to ask it to reload the modules automatically. Now I am going to ask it to read the data file, which is a CSV file, and I'll be very specific about the columns in that file because it does not have the headers. So it did read the file, however, it got the file name incorrect, and I'm not going to ask it to change the file name. I'm just going to do it manually. So I'm just going to return the data frame from the main function so that that can be seen on the notebook. Next, I will ask it to create a new file data.py and create a new function called read data within that file and move the code to read the CSV file in the read data function and return a data frame from that. Now I'm aware that the file has the time column which is in the Eastern time zone, and therefore I will ask it to localize the time column into Eastern time and also use time zone aware timestamps. Okay, so what it did now is printed the data frame instead of returning the data frame which I had changed earlier. So again going to ask it to change it to return the data frame and not just print it. I'm asking it to do so because let's say if I make any further changes to the code, it does not go ahead and print the data frame again. So next I want the time column to be set as the index, and I also want that to be sorted. Now I know that the input file already has the value sorted. Now I'm asking it to create a new file called signal.py, and in that file we will have a function called add signal, and just to get started we will add a random signal to the data frame. So now it has created the file for us. However, there is a stdlib module related warning that a signal module already exists. So I'm just going to change the file name to sig.py instead of signal.py. So over here, I am attempting to create a moving average crossover signal. However, my prompt got interrupted. It still managed to guess what I was trying to do and implemented that, but I don't think the code is correct. I'm going to just accept the code right now and let it slide for a bit, and thereafter we will come back to fixing the code. So further now I'm trying to get some of the variables or constants defined in a different file. So I want the short window and the long window to be defined in a constants.py file. Again, you can see the code is not correct. It is doing an import which will not work. But we are not trying to fix the code right now. We will try to do that later. And we are going to ask GitHub Copilot to fix the code. I also want variable names in a certain way, and that is what I'm trying to get it to do. Now, this is a case where it is easier for me to change the variable names manually. But as an experiment, we want this to be done by Copilot. And let's see how much we can get done just using the voice. So over here, it changed the short moving average variable, but then no, it did not change the long moving average. Now I'm just going to give it a blanket fix the code prompt, and let's see if it fixes. Okay, so it did fix it. It did fix the variable names in the np.where clause. However, there were some things that are not yet fixed. So we will ask it to do so. And I'm also getting it to do very minor changes like changing the constant values. So I was trying to run the notebook. However, I just realized that it has not added the signal, and it has probably not even called the add signal function in the file. So we will ask it to do so. So this is where my prompts go wrong. I am thinking out loud and speaking at the same times using the voice prompt, and that is where things go a little wrong for a short while. Next, I'm going to ask it to create a backtest file, and in that file, we will have a backtest function which will add the signals and then show us the data frame. So the first part is to just create a backtest function, and then we will ask it to move to a backtest file. So over here I got rate limited. So now I'm asking it to do the last prompt again, but what it does it only does the last successful prompt again, which means it will only add the backtest function which has already been added in the file. So now I'm asking it to move the backtest function to a backtest file. And what you see here is it actually makes two prompts for each of the file. One is move the backtest function into a new file backtest.py, and update the bt.py file to import the backtest function from backtest.py. So that it is doing that internally. Next, I'm trying to run the Python notebook, but it will not work because there are some errors in the code. So we will try to solve those further. So first of all, I will just try a generic fix the code in this file kind of prompt, and let's see if it is able to resolve the problems. So it did resolve the problem, but I've missed saving one of the files, and I'm going to do that. Even that file, the backtest.py file, has a problem. So we will look into that, and we will again ask Copilot to fix the issue. And just confirming that the same problem is occurring here. So now I'm going to ask Copilot to fix the problem again. So it is the same kind of problem and it should be able to fix it. Now, I'm not happy about the kind of code that is written for the signal calculations here, and I am tempted to fix it manually, but the point of the demo is to get GitHub Copilot to fix it. And I'm attempting the same over here, but it's not doing the right thing, or at least it does not make sense to me. So I'm just going to let it slide for now, and we will check what it shows in the notebook. So now I'm going to ask it to recalculate the signal because this does not make sense to me, but I'm again trying to explain it how the crossover should be calculated. Again, it did something, but it does not make sense to me. I mean, I do understand the code and the logic behind it, but again, we have time as an index, so it is probably not going to work out for us. So now the next step I'm going to take here is I'm going to ask it to remove the signal completely and start from scratch. And I'm hoping that that would work. So before that, I just want to check the notebook again, whether the moving averages are being calculated. So it does seem to work for now. So this time I'm going to ask it to create the signal column again, and let's see whether it does it correctly. So this does look a step in the right direction, but it is not correct. So I'm going to ask it and mention that it has to be a crossover. So now the code looks okay, but I want it in a particular manner, and I'm going to hint it to use a shift operator. Okay, so now we have a crossover signal that seems to be okay. And I'm also going to ask it to create a cross under signal. So now it has created the signal for the short side also, which is the cross under signal. And next I will ask it to merge the column into a single signal column. So now it has created this signal column, and this is a single column that we expected. and the code looks correct. So next step is to verify the outputs and create the backtest. So we get the output of the function in a data frame. And next we will ask the Copilot to print the value counts from the data frame, the signal value counts. Now I'm getting it to clean the data frame so that we remove the short ME and the long ME columns. But what it does, it actually ends up just returning the signal, and that is not what I want. So I'm asking it again to return the signal column along with all the other columns. All right, so now we have a single signal column and the signal value counts are looking good. Next, I'm asking it to write a backtest. So whenever we have a signal equals to 1, then it is a long signal and we should take a long position, and a -1 is a short signal and we should take a short position, and we will have only one open position at a time. And I'm also asking it to create two parameters, TP and SL. TP is for take profit and SL is for stop loss. And I'll be placing these in the constants file so that I can play with it later. Now it did create the backtest, but it is not what I expect. And I will, going forward, I will give it some hints so that it can create a correct backtest. So as you can see, it defined TP and SL. It imported it from the constants, but then it did not declare those in the constants. So I'm asking it to fix it. Over here, there are some errors in the voice prompt, and because I'm using speech to text, I think I may have to intervene and do some manual corrections further. Let's see. Okay, so it automatically fixed the error. I did not have to intervene and it created the appropriate constants in the file. Again, I'm just being picky and asking it to name variables in a certain way. Next, I'm going to ask it to create position as a dictionary and place all the variables related to a position in that dictionary. So here I'm reviewing the code, and I'm pretty sure that this code is not perfectly correct. The position dictionary should not be instantiated at the top. But for now, I want the additional columns to be in there. So I want the entry time, exit time, and a few other attributes in the dictionary. For now, I'm just going to let it do whatever it is working with. And later on, we will go ahead and ask it to fix the position dictionary. So let us first get the attributes in line. Over here, I'm asking it to remove the status flag, which I think is the status of the position and also the side of the position, which is long or short. And I asked it to create a flag called is open, but I missed asking it to create a position type. So we will continue to add the is open flag and then also add the position type. So we don't know whether the low price comes first or the high price comes first. And therefore, we cannot just assume that which one comes first. We can have a good guess about it. So in this case, I'm just going to assume that the stop loss gets executed first between the high and the low. And then we take care of the take profit targets. So over here, I had taken a break for some time, and I think that broke my chain of thought and also caused some errors in the prompts. Having some to and fro with Copilot, I was asking it to add the position type, and it was adding that, and then it was removing the position type again when I was asking it to check the stop loss based on the position type. I continue to ask it to add some more attributes like the exit price, and then we are also adding slippage and probably also adding a constant for commissions. Uh, and we can use these later to see the backtest results. Just in case you are wondering what ticker I'm using, so this is the NASDAQ index, and the backtest I'm designing here is based on e-mini contract, and that is why the commissions is set to $5 and the slippage is set to $1. A disclaimer here that this is only for educational and entertainment purposes only. This is not a strategy or a financial recommendation. So now I'm asking it to create a list of positions, and it should return a data frame with the positions. Now, as you can see, it is adding to the list of positions even when it is not supposed to do so. And I will ask it these questions, but for now, I'm just going to accept the code. So over here, I'm asking it why is it adding to the list of positions when the position is being closed. And the reason that it gives is not correct. So I am going to ask it to change the position code. One of the issues with the positions is that a new position is instantiated outside the loop and not when it has been created. So I'm going to ask it to change the code. It is getting a little difficult for me to get my message across to GitHub Copilot, and I'll be just doing some to and fro so that it can understand. And maybe I will have to give it some explicit instructions so that it writes the correct code. A part of the problem may be because I'm using the speech to text transcription here. One of the ways I have found that works well is when we give it instructions to remove the old code, backtrack a bit, and then start with fresh prompts. Now I am going to give it explicit instructions that the default position should be set to none, and a new position is only created when there's a signal. As you can see, it again created a list of positions, and it is adding to the list of positions when the position is being closed. This is not correct. We want it to add to the position only when the new position has been created. So we are now going to ask it to fix that part. So finally, this looks correct. So now I'm asking it to create a variable for the return value of this data frame and create a profit column in there. So I just asked it to change the profit column to profit before commissions, and then I'm going to change the column name manually. So over here, I am facing some errors in the backtest, and I know what the error is. The time column does not exist on the data frame, so I'm going to ask it to use the index column, but in this case, I'm giving it a hint on what needs to be fixed. It will only be fixing the code. It is not going to analyze the code. So now it has run the backtest, and we are able to see the profit before commissions. And now I will be adding some statistics to the backtest. Yeah, there's one more problem here, that I think the last position has not been closed, and that is why we see a huge drop at the end. So I'm going to ask Copilot to fix the issue. Okay, so now the issue looks fixed. Now I'll be adding some more statistics to the data frame, and we'll be adding the profit column, profit after commissions, and we'll also be adding the average winner, loser, kind of all that kind of stuff in there. I'll be doing some more changes here, which is computing the profits based on the contract, e-mini contract, which is being used in this case. So now that the backtest is working, now we will create the statistics for this backtest, and for that I am going to create a new file called stats.py, and we will ask Copilot to print some basic statistics on the backtest. I'm not going to point which statistics specifically, we'll just let it do based on what it knows. So it has added some of the stats like total trades, profitable trades, losing trades, average profit, max loss, win rate, loss rate. So I think these are good stats, but these are very basic stats. So we will also be using another library called quantstats, and we will be asking Copilot to print the reports using that. Next, I'm going to ask Copilot to print the stats before returning from the backtest function. And I'm just doing this in this case because it is very convenient to see the outputs on the Jupyter notebook. I'm also going to ask it to plot the profit curve. So here I'm asking it to move the profit curve plotting to the print stats function. So now I'm asking it to add a constant called initial capital, and based on that we can see the equity curve, not just the profit curve. In this case, I overlooked a mistake. It is not basically a cumulative profit anymore because we have added the initial capital. So that would become the equity curve or account balance. Now, because it is taking too long to run and the CSV file has a lot of data in it, so I'm going to ask it to limit the rows to 100,000 rows. Now I'm asking it to create a function print quant stats, and that will basically use the quant stats library to show the statistics of the backtest. So here I'm asking it to remove the initial capital as a parameter to the function, but just use the constant directly. Just to speed up things, I'm manually adding the call to the print quant stats function. So the chart title is incorrect in this case. It is not the profit curve. It is showing the equity curve. So over here, I was facing an issue with the library and the function that was being invoked. I figured out later that it was because of the timestamp index missing on the positions data frame. And once I found that out, I was able to get it to work. Now, in this case, I'm asking the asking Copilot to suggest me a fix, and it is actually suggesting me a fix, but it is doing that in the notebook. It just gave me a hint that okay, it is an issue with the index, which I kind of missed. At this point, I realized that I need to add the time index to the positions data frame. So now we are able to successfully run the backtest and also able to get the results for the strategy, and we are also able to plot different statistics for the backtest using quant stats. So now I'm just playing around with the parameters to test with the strategy. So one thing I did miss out was uh, that the TP percentage is not supposed to be multiplied by 100 because it is not divided by 100 in the calculations within the backtest. And I will be coming back to that and I'll be changing that further. So as you can see, setting the wrong percentage caused this problem. We are having a straight line for the profit curve, which is incorrect. So now the profit curve is looking good. Again, this is not a profit curve, it is an equity curve. The title of the chart is incorrect. So here I'm just testing different parameters on the strategy I'm playing around with. This is not a recommendation. This is not a stock recommendation or a strategy recommendation. We are just doing this for educational and entertainment purposes. So after a few tries, it seems that there is a profitable strategy using this simple moving average crossover technique. Again, this is not a recommendation. I would not use this strategy myself without further verification of all the computations that have been done in the program. So next what we'll be doing is we'll ask Copilot to make sure that there is no future bias in the code and in the backtesting. So I'm just going to ask it to verify the code and it will just check the code. I do not see any future bias myself, but it is just going to check the code and make sure that does not happen. Now, now if it did have a future bias, it is possible that some of the strategy backtest might show a very good, too good to be true kind of profit curves. Now, earlier we had limited the number of rows to 100,000, and I think that was approximately 9 months of data. Now I'm going to run the backtest on the full dataset. Now I'm not asking Copilot to do this, I'm doing this manually. So as you can see, the same strategy did not work over a longer period. This shows why testing on different market conditions is important. The previous backtest did not work well over a longer period. So it is essential to test your strategy in different market scenarios. Here I'm just playing around with a few settings to get better results over the long term. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, share and subscribe to the channel. Your support keeps me motivated to create more exciting content. Feel free to leave a comment and let me know if there are any specific topics you'd like me to cover in the future videos. See you in the next one.